Yeah, I think it's game time in terms of where we are. So up next, we have Drew. There he is. Drew from the Commit Boost team. And I don't have a full bio on you, but ex-Brevin, VC, what else did you do? I don't know. Boy band at some point? Yeah? I don't know. All right. So we have Drew from the Commit Boost team, Sebastien from Kiln, if you could come up here as well. We got Matthias, there he is, from SSV. Ben from Coinbase, and Reza from Figment. There he is. All right. We'll get. Oh, you guys have mics. There we go.
How's everyone doing?
Yo.
Hopefully this is your most exciting event of the week. Like Sam said, the opportunity for proposer commitments and the first use case being Preconfs is a huge unlock for Ethereum. Kevin highlighted, but actually left my job at a hedge fund to work on this concept, and why I came about to this idea of Commit Boost, and generally why I'm excited to sit up here with these folks is Justin Drake said to me a couple years back, this is when I was an investor, he says he didn't say it like this, I say he did, but if you want to make a lot of money, find a way to use Ethereum that we haven't historically thought about. And I think data availability is one of those great examples where when Ethereum was created, no one said, oh, this is a great DA layer. That evolved with time, and it's a different way to perceive. And the question I kept asking myself is, if issuance is going to go down, what are these, at the time, 600,000 plus validators going to do when they have near 100% uptime? They're quite good at running computers. What are the other services they can provide, not only to Ethereum, to maybe the world? And so that has kicked off my journey in all this with Commit Boost, but also the exploration many of these teams have been down, which we'll start discussing in a moment on that side. So maybe we'll just begin, go down the line. I gave a couple options. There were some pre-canned questions here, so maybe I'll mix it up per person. But Seb, if you can talk a little, give a little intro, and then why don't you tell us your favorite researcher?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Sebastien. I'm working at Kiln. We are an operator on Ethereum. We have about 50,000 validators, a bit more. So that's about 5% of the network. So quite a lot of block space, I would say, for pre-confirmations. I'm mostly working on research and infra, like a mixture of the two. And so I've been a bit involved in the Commit Boost effort.
That's right.
And yeah, so my favorite researcher, I would say, is Barnaby. Because I think he has the meta view on Ethereum, and yeah, I like his views and like the way he shares it. So yeah, kudos to Barnaby.
So notice, I think Barnaby is also French, so you know we have a mafia starting here.
I'm totally biased.
Matt, why don't we go with you, and I'll ask you, what do you know, the way I see Ethereum, it's kind of at an inflection point, or at least that's how crypto Twitter perceives it, but maybe what do you see as the greatest thing coming out of Ethereum today? So an intro and something you're excited about around Ethereum today.
Matthias here from SSV Labs. So we are the core team behind the very first distributed validator technology called SSV Network. Currently on mainnet, I think right now around 64,000 validators are actually using the technology actively. Then we just announced like 1.5 weeks ago the SSV 2.0, which I'll probably share later. Yep. Ethereum, I think there's a lot of like new innovations coming out, like pre-confirmations. Another one is my powerful friends Unify rollup itself. That's going to unify all the liquidities for base for the rollups, and also although there's some issues with Petra testnet, but that's I'm sorry, but that's something that
I think you mean test nets.
Testnet, yeah.
Multiple chains here.
Correct. So
the amount of messages I got freaking out about what happened on testnet yesterday was insane.
Everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine, okay? So I think that's one more thing that really look out itself, although there's a lot. I think it's the largest upgrade for Ethereum. A lot of new EIPs in the validator sex, when we talk about like as a thing about the execution layers itself. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. Yeah.
Nice. And then Ben, we'll go with you, and I'll ask you and Reza the same question. You guys both have like an institutional slant. Kiln does too, but just to pick on you guys, what do you see? What types of questions are you getting from folks, or what do you see as like the biggest risk in Ethereum today? So just an intro, and then some of the risks you've seen or perceived, maybe false, maybe true. Be interested.
Yeah, Ben Rodriguez, protocol specialist at Coinbase. Just think of me as a cross-functional strategist on our product strategy across different like product lines. A lot of my work is on staking, but I am like across like insto and a little bit of retail, sometimes base as well. You know, and I also work or try to work externally with protocols and protocol teams and stuff like that. Try to work with like Drew on like, you know, stuff that maybe Coinbase may need when it comes to like running commit boosts. And you know, this has been a long conversation that we've been having. I promise we're trying to make progress. In terms of, so I don't know if this is from like the, I have a couple of ways that I could answer that question in terms of like risks to Ethereum, right? I could talk from like maybe like an insto perspective, but I think just a general perspective in general, right? Like, not to get on a soapbox or anything like that, so I'll talk more about Ethereum specific and then more maybe crypto specific, right? I'll start with crypto specific. We don't do enough to denounce all the, excuse my language, bullshit that's happening throughout the ecosystem. 2 days ago, I was just sitting at a bar, just you know, with my little mocktail, and someone started talking to me, and they were a pharmacist, so they had really nothing about crypto, and I was like, yeah, I'm traveling, you know, for a conference here, and the first thing that she asked me was, is that all just a scam? Literally, that's the first thing she asked me, right? As soon as like, you know, I brought up like what I do for work, and it doesn't matter what we're doing in like, you know, in terms of like the real technical chops and cool things that is being done in Ethereum, if that's what the general public thinks, right? It really does not matter. We need to be able to onboard those people, right? In terms of like, you know, just Ethereum specific, right? I think, you know, one thing is, you know, there's this idea that has kind of like died over the past like 6 months, is the idea of like ossification. I think that's, in general, the biggest risk to Ethereum, and just in general, like, I think the way, like, you know, the idea of ossification is it's kind of just like, it's rigid, it doesn't really change, stuff like that, which is kind of like, you know, in my opinion, a problem with Bitcoin, right? Ossification, I think, is death. And I think, like, you know, you get too comfortable with, like, certain things about the protocol and certain dynamics of the protocol, and then we get kind of, like, you know, bogged down, and also just kind of, like, you know, have this idea that like everything's okay when like there's other, you know, protocols around that like is pushing the envelope on certain things, right? I mean, I'm going to call them out, Solana specifically. Like, you know, people thought they were not really competition, but honestly, let's be real. Like, let's not like, you know, let's call it what it is. It is, right? And it like, you know, kind of forced Ethereum back into like, oh, like, you know, kind of like war mode, right? So I think like the biggest risk to Ethereum is like, you know, feeling too safe. And there's a lot of things going on right now with pre-confirmations, base rollups, native rollup, whatever it is, right? Like, and that's excellent from that perspective. But from a non-technical perspective, right, one of the biggest things is users onboarding, right? Specifically, like, you know, it should feel like there's multiple chains, and that's, you know, fine. I think, like, the fractured experience is a problem. Like, the idea of, like, looking at my wallet and seeing not only the logo of the token, but a sub-logo of what network that's on, and having multiple different types of dApps, the same ones deployed across many different things, feeling like, you know, fractured and all that stuff, is also a big risk. Because that's not an experience for anyone would like. It should feel like one chain, right? So combine all that together of the general crypto risk and also the risk to Ethereum. Sorry for a very long answer, but, you know.
It's all good. That's good. Reza.
Yeah, I think you answered for me too. I'm going to tag on that. I'm Reza from Figment, Senior PM for Ethereum and Solana. And yeah, so the question was, what are the risks? So you basically covered the risk for the retail and mass adoption, which I agree with you. I used to work actually for Wealthsimple, and we were building this Web3 wallet, and adoption is actually the biggest hurdle. And that was like a few years ago, and still it is the problem is there. I mean, the best experience is no experience in that sense. You want to be onboarded, have the wallet and transact with it and reach your end goal without, needing to understand all these underlying, basically, tech, right? I want to talk about institutions because that's our main focus at Figment. There are different kind of risks. Some of them are perceived risks. So the same perceived risk that you're talking about, basically the general public, exists in some different shape or form when we are talking to institutions, that they are wondering that what's going to happen during the slashing, and the noise that some of people in the Ethereum ecosystem make on Twitter is not helpful for that matter. So I would say that counter to that is education. We try at Figment to have very strong opinions about this and try to and it takes a long time to basically bring TradFi and institutions that are not comfortable with something that I would say libertarian technology, and they want to. But we have been very successful. We have like over 700 clients right now, with more than close to 50,000 validators.
That's awesome. So some aligned views probably on the risks. Some favorite researchers, some excitement, which is good. And we'll shift the focus here towards proposer commitments, more specifically. Maybe I'll start with Sebastien, not to offend the others, but I think Kiln has been one of the most forward-leaning teams with regards to testing things in Haleski, battle testing protocols, engaging with teams. And so, Seb, I'd be really curious in some of the things you guys have found. Maybe there's some teams in here that are looking at building proposer commitments, running validators. What are the operational things you guys discovered? What are the things that need to be focused on still as we go forward? How did ETHGas do if you guys have tested them? Maybe since they're hosting us here, just a bit about that would be super helpful.
Yeah. So like all of this is like being built at the moment. So like there are like different solutions that have different semantics and so on. And so as an operator, it's a bit let's say complicated to deal with the complexity of trying to handle them all, to have like some sort of like sane ecosystem where there is like fair competition and like operators can switch between different pre-confirmation systems. So I think this is why like Coinbase is very important because like it's an open platform with like some guidelines for pre-confirmation systems to like onboard new validators. And so I think the main challenge is like dealing with this complexity. And I would strongly favor like folks like to engage with like Coinbase and try to understand like first like look at what others are doing and try to come up with like some sort of like common framework to like operate give to operators like a simple playbook to register their keys, enable them on their like production, and then like also be able to unregister them in a safe way so that they can switch to another system if needed. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but TLDR is like working towards some sort of standardized way of dealing with pre-confirmations from a proposer's perspective.
That's good. And what has been, I guess, just one quick follow-up, what has been your experience so far? Is it pretty standardized? Is it slightly a little out of whack? Do we need to knock some heads around, get people a little more organized?
Right now, it's a bit hacky. Like, working with one specific pre-confirmation system is easy. It's like the kind of job we are used to. Like, whenever we like try to run a specific L2 or something like this, like you read the documentation, you find quirks, you fix them, you engage back and forth, and so on. So this is manageable for like one pre-confirmation system. But the moment like you have like 50,000 validators, and half of them are going to go through PBS, the other half to like some specific pre-confirmation system A, and another subset to pre-confirmation system B and C, and so on. Once you have to deal with this sort of like complexity, it becomes very hard. And so I think I answered twice the same question, but
no, that's
you
good.
get my point.
That's good. And maybe I'll go to you, Reza. I think, like you said, your clients are generally institutions. I can't imagine many of them are demanding pre-confirmations be run right now. But maybe that's shifting a bit. And so you guys have alternative priorities, all these things you're working through. I would be curious in what moves the needle for clients like you guys, for Figment, to start onboarding these types of protocols, whether it's ETHGas or the others that are out there, and just kind of the things you all think through?
You use the term competing priorities, right? Okay, payback time, I guess. Yeah, so for us, actually, we have initiated a lot of conversations around pre-confirmations already. And it's interesting that we are at the, I would say, early days of this, and yet there's already massive fragmentation in terms of these solutions that each one have their own, risk profile in terms of slashing. Some of them, use ABSs. Some of them want collateral. Some of them are just reputation-based. And then rewards, the way that they're going to generate rewards are also different. They're tapping into different user base and solving for different use cases, which makes it very exciting. But that also means that, as Seb mentioned, it is the fragmentation poses a lot of challenge for validators like us. So what we are doing is, I would say it's a two-phase approach. The first phase is vetting all these pre-confirmation solutions, trying to really understand that, what they are about, what is the value prop they're bringing to the table, what is the upside, what are the risks, and more importantly, I want to underline this, what is the impact on the whole ecosystem? Because if there is an end game, what that end game is going to entail is very important. And again, we cannot have like 500 of those running our validators on those. We're going to pick and choose, and we want to be very careful about that. So that's something that we are actively doing. We are, and if you are actually building any solutions, you can reach me, and I would love to actually have a conversation with you. But it's not rocket science. We're going to look at value prop, risk, and impact on the ecosystem. And we're going to transfer that knowledge to, and we are doing that already with our institutional clients.
That's good to hear, yeah. So if you're in the room and you have a different way to do pre-confirmations, Reza's open to talk to you, yeah. I'm just kidding. And then I guess, Ben, similarly, but maybe more amongst Coinbase, because it's its own ecosystem, I would say, of folks and their knowledge around crypto. What are the types of questions or education or metrics that you're trying to lean into to sell folks on supporting pre-confirmations of the various teams that are coming to you all?
Yeah, from a validator perspective, right, one of the biggest things is, well, it's another avenue for validator revenue, right? And that's, as like the staking ecosystem starts to continue to maturize and thinking about like staked ETH ETFs, for example, coming down the pipeline, probably coming down the pipeline much faster than we expect now because of the new, at least, regime in the US, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, technically, if you have that much stake going online, right, APY is going to go down, right? So people are going to look for potentially ways to increase validator revenue and just revenue and from staking in general, right? So these conversations are happening where it's like, okay, well, and I think there's a couple of pre-confirmation protocols that I've spoken to in here where it's like, give me your metrics. Right? What exactly are you expecting, in terms of like potential like revenue numbers, right? And I know that's a hard question to ask, but like we have to keep pressuring on it, right? The concept here is that like again, there's going to be probably a lot of pre-confirmation protocols. We can't support all of them. Operationally, very like complex and intensive, right? So understanding what that value prop is very, very important. And because we're we're so early in the stages, right? Education is a very big thing, right? Not just like, internally, but externally. Internally at Coinbase, I have to, we have the discussion many times, right? My product team, the security team, the legal team, right? And I have to continuously have these conversations with them around competing priorities, right? And so I've been having like one-on-one conversations with the various folks that need to have these conversations. And then once we get to a specific point where there's a strategy, which, internally we have like an idea of what that strategy might look like, then it becomes a question of like, okay, the demand specifically on it, right? And that is where metrics come in, but also where institutions need to understand what the hell is going on, right? You know, a lot of institutions are probably not crypto native, right? And the idea is that they kind of lean on, like, you know, maybe the Figments of the world and the Coinbases of the world to like understand what's coming down the pipeline, what's important for them, right? To like look into, and that requires like a front-facing education strategy as well. So it's a combination of all these things, which is why it's like a little bit, at least from the Coinbase perspective, a little bit slow moving. I'm sorry, Drew, but
right.
you know, but that's like kind of like one of the those are like the big, like, you know, rocks for that.
Yeah, and I think it's important for I came from large. I worked at Goldman and then Brevin. Brevin was the smallest company I worked at, is 1,000 people. And the thing to think about these big organizations, they're kind of, hate to use the term, but kind of like warships. And so it takes a lot to move the boat, but when the boat moves, there's waves. And so it just takes time. And the fact that Ben's even here, Reza's here, I mean, Kiln is here, SSV, the top validators are even in the room, means we've made quite a bit of progress versus where we were a year ago, which is a positive. And I'll go to Matt. You guys have a unique technology in the sense of, you know, DVT. I'd be curious, were there any kind of unique value props in how you guys think about preconfs? I know you guys have kind of like this based app thesis you're working towards, and I think you target generally like solo stakers or smaller group clusters of stakers, things like that, that may not be through institutional providers. And just kind of curious if you see some unique value props or different ways you guys view it that you'd want to share.
I think in terms of institution, I've been chasing this tool for a while right now.
Another person I have to apologize to.
All right, anyway. Oh, Ben is here. All right, so I think over at our site itself, we come with DVT itself is very much towards the security side of things for validators. It's not new, so I will not go too much into it. And like what Ben just mentioned, a few things that keep us busy itself is that Ben spoke about ETF and all this is now coming down. So when that amount come into stake, what is the APR gonna be? That's a question mark. And whether it's sustainable itself, even for, you know, big institutions like them, machine costs. So I think pre-confirmation itself definitely is a good innovation to actually increase like the revenue, like what Ben said, for every validators, which in returns might go back to the operators. And in terms of base app and all this itself, we actually come up with this concept itself also to target that. How do we actually increase what a validator can earn without any risk? So maybe we should take a little step back itself when I talk about like SSV 2.0. So right now, even like on the 1.0 side, which is like the DVT side itself, everything is very easy to run the validators. It's zero coordinations. Pick and choose any operators you like. Then the smart contract shootout event, cluster created, done. That's it. As simple as that. So when there's pre-confirmation, it's going to be the same thing. So metadata, which pre-confirmations itself, that's the operator support. Hopefully, through commit boost later, things will be very easy. Yeah, that's how easy it is. So, you know, the number of validators that's actively running on like SSV itself is quite a big amount. So we kind of think of like, how can we actually help these validators, these SSV validators to earn more use? So we come out with SSV 2.0, which is what we call as a base application protocols. So base applications is basically referring to like any services itself that require bootstrap. So pre-confirmation protocols can be a base applications as well. So how it's gonna work itself is actually very simple. We're gonna use like the validator itself, the key itself, the validator keys itself, and the social reputations and the CBN resistance of the existing already run validators to actually provide base security to services. That's what we're gonna do. So nothing going on with the validator. Whatever you run in a validator, withdraw credential or whatsoever, it stays the same. All right? So I don't want to show too much. So go fast forward to phase 2. We're going to build something like a coordination layer, which is a base app chain. Not an L1, not an L2, just a very simple internal coordination layer. credibly neutral that allow multiple L1s itself to communicate with each other. So any base applications that itself will be able to not just get Ethereum-based security, but all the other L1s security itself. Yeah, that's basically base applications. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so broader services than just pre-confirmations, but definitely pre-confirmation support. It's great to hear. So we talked a little bit about maybe where we're at, some of the metrics that are key for adoption. I'm going to kind of go down the line here to close this out, a bit about the future and some expectations people look to see. I'll maybe start with Sebastien here and just say if we're here in 60-degree weather in Denver next year, maybe we're having a beer or a glass of wine instead of a room full of people, where would you think we've gotten to with pre-confirmations? Like, what does that future somewhat look like?
Yeah, so I guess there are two sides of it. Like, one is like how much it's going to be adopted by validators, and then how it's going to be used in the ecosystem. So on the validator side, I guess it's going there's we discussed a bit about like the pricing of pre-confirmations and how to incentivize validators to like opt in. But like once there is like clear incentives about it, I think it's going to be a bit like how MEV Boost and PBS started on ETH, where like within a month or so, like most of the validators were running it. So I think adoption can be quite fast. And then in terms of usage, yeah, I'm bullish on the L2 narrative, so I hope it's going to be used well in that regard with like, cross transactions and this kind of stuff, yeah.
Nice. Maybe, Ben, I'll go to you, and I pick on Ben to highlight risks, as I assume he has to, unfortunately, do this for a good chunk of his day. But what are some of the future risks you already see either emerging or you say, like maybe theory today that you're concerned with or people are concerned with? Just be curious around some of that and the items you come across.
I mean, there are multiple avenues of risk specifically, right? Operational security, right? Operational risk, security risk. For example, whatever smart contract risk, if you're going to be using something like that, right? It needs to be audited, needs to be and the general adoption of smart contract-based things is still very, very low, right? So if there's pre-confirmation protocols that really rely heavily on smart contracts, that would be a potential issue, right? Operational risk, if there's going to be a bunch of them, it's not going to be 9 different sidecars that we're going to run, right? Which is hoping that commit boost, right, be able to provide this kind of this standard to which we could just plug in and then be okay, yeah, this pre-confirmation protocol and MEV boost, and then we're good to go, right? And there's also regulatory risk in general, right? Yeah, there's a lightening of the kind of the stranglehold on crypto from the election stuff, but regardless, we can't just fuck around and find out. We have to make sure that we go and understand what this means from a regulatory perspective. And just general idea of education and adoption, right? I think people need to first really understand what the implications are, right? And then the other thing about the implications is you mentioned this earlier, Reza, is that the overall health of the ecosystem, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that I think is still unanswered to me. Fast forward a year from now, let's say there's half the network is running pre-confs, right? What does that mean for the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole, right? So for example, we made strides with MEV, with MEV Boost and whatnot, but just to throw out a risk vector there is that there are two block builders are the ones that account for 90% of the blocks being built, right? Then that's a centralization risk right there. Obviously, there's movement towards decentralizing that or trying to figure that out, right? But with any new primitive pre-confirmations included, we need to understand the long-term implications of that as well.
That's good. And then, Reza, I guess to kind of see the other side of the coin, if you will, what are the things that you see developing that are exciting that you expect to kind of play out in the next year? Maybe it's just making more money, but I'm curious on other things.
That's what we're all here for.
Well, it's very exciting because I see this as a way, if it done properly, this is going to be paving the way for adoption, at least for certain type of use cases. With pre-confs, we might get these low-value, high-volume transactions like gaming that can be actually interesting to be happening on the L1, right? Or other types of use cases, like maybe would be like a value prop for a preconf be like for traders specifically to be able to do like SAX-DEX transactions more securely and more reliably, right? So it can take different shapes of form that actually bring new users, net new users to the ecosystem. To me, that's very exciting, and I again, if it is done properly and we can, you mentioned that there could be some metrics to understand the health of it. There could be some malicious actors in the play to cause a slashing, cause harm to actually even the flow of the transactions. So for that matter, if we can prevent those and we can go properly and have a healthy network, this is going to be a game changer, in my opinion.
Maybe Matt, and then we'll finish with one lightning question. Is DVT is unique in its tech, and so I'm just curious for the pre-conf networks or generally proposer commitments that are launching. Is there like one or two things they should absolutely keep in mind to make it more seamless for integration, for your users, like things like that?
I think the very important thing is please talk to Drew from Commit Boost. I mean, as like every pre-confirmation protocols right now work very differently. Some want the master key, some want the validator key, this and that. Like what all the experts here say, we need a standardizations. We need it to work just like how NBV Boost is working right now, pointing to the endpoint and all this is out, which make it much more easy to integrate, or I would say ease of use as well. So yeah, please talk to Drew. Please talk to Drew and make sure that it's integrated in Commit Boost. Yeah.
Promise I didn't buy him a beer before this either. But yeah. That may be a good place to stop, but we'll go just a lightning round quick. Just one thing, and maybe you've already said it, but just to reemphasize the most important thing for the community accelerating pre-confirmations to keep in mind. And I'm going to answer it myself also because there's one thing close to my heart, and that is keep Ethereum's validator set decentralized. That is the most important thing for me. I think Vitalik would agree, and he's given a talk on this. So just as teams build, they should absolutely keep that in mind. And maybe we'll go down the line. Seb?
Yeah, I will just say use tools to register keys on your pre-confirmation system, unregister, and then just stick to the PBS protocol, and it's going to work fine, I guess.
And then you just mentioned what I want to say. Keep validator decentralized. Maximum effective balance is coming. So it's going to get more complex as well. Penalty is going to get worse as well, 64 times if I'm not wrong. Use DVT. Go into SSV 2.0 as well. Get more use.
I will. So yes, I am from Coinbase, but believe it or not, I agree with Drew, and keep the validator set decentralized, right? I know Coinbase gets some slack, recently actually in terms of what our ETH penetration is, right? Good news, we are committing to actually being more transparent to that. If you've seen on Twitter, our new VP of engineering in my organization, asked what would you like to see in terms of our metrics more publicized and whatnot. Obviously, we can't do everything, but we're trying to be more transparent. So that's actually pretty near and dear to my heart as well. We don't want just two entities running everything, right? And then in general, I'm gonna just reemphasize the idea of education, right? Because there's only 80 people in this room right now, if I can count, right? Or 60 people, whatever. And just the broader crypto ecosystem needs to also understand what's going on here, right? What's important, and what the use cases are, what the value props are, and stuff like that. Because if people just don't understand that, this doesn't really matter, right? And then because if the broader crypto ecosystem may still be trying to onboard to this idea, then you could only imagine that the general, ecosystem as well, instos and retail folks and whatnot, just don't really know what's happening, right? So it's just being very transparent about what these are and what the metrics are, what the value props are, and just being extremely transparent.
Reza,
if you don't do that, they call it a scam, just like.
They just call it a scam, yeah.
I would just say that, for the folks that are working on any pre-conf solution, just keep it simple. right? I mean, make sure that it is compatible with commit boost. Because at the end of the day, I'm just being super transparent. That's one of the criteria that we use to deprioritize a solution. So keep it simple. Have a simple value prop. It's okay to have like multiple solutions, but if you want simple and easy to understand, I think you will have a much better chance of getting adoption.
That's good. And with that, thank our guests here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. You guys are good.